Hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley. I'm joined this evening by Waterford legend and TG Car pundit Michelle Ryan to discuss this weekend's senior, intermediate, and junior LGFA finals this weekend. The senior final should be very, very interesting between Kerry and Galway. The intermediate game between Tyrone and Leitrim, and you have Fermanagh and Louth in the junior game as well. And looking forward to diving into the action with Michelle in this one. Before we get into it, shout out to our sponsors at Capture Athletics. If you want the best gear around, check them out if you haven't already. So, Michelle, it's All Ireland final weekend, this Sunday in Croke Park. So, Kerry against Galway in the senior should be an interesting game. So should the two other grades. So, how are you feeling coming into the weekend? Should be three very good games.
Yeah, it should be, absolutely, Matt. It's something to really look forward to, and I think, I suppose with the LGFA and its 50th year and celebrating that, it's great, I suppose, as a neutral especially, to be watching and see that there's going to be a new name in the cup for a long while. I mean, I was looking back through the records, and since the Brendan Martin was introduced, there's been 13 counties represented on the Brendan Martin, but only since 2005 there's only been 3: Dublin, Cork and Meath, and this time now there's going to be a new name on it, which is fantastic for ladies football. I'm not sure Cork, Meath and Dublin players will agree with that, but it's great for the rest of us watching in. And I still remember the excitement of when Meath won their All-Ireland back a few years, their first All-Ireland back a few years ago. And I suppose as sports people, what you love seeing is the joy that sports brings, and there's a lot of hard days. And no matter who wins on Sunday, especially in the senior final, I mean, the absolute joy and hardship they would have gone through to get to this stage, not only to win the cup. So yeah, really looking forward to what I hope is going to be a very competitive game in the senior, and wishing all the teams in junior, intermediate and senior all the very best.
Exactly. So, and I suppose with the senior championship overall, with Dublin going out the quarterfinals, the semi-finals obviously just gone as well between Galway and Cork, which Galway won out in the end. Kerry beating Armagh in the semi-final as well. Was the championship a surprise this season for you, Michelle? Because you looked at the league, Armagh won the league. Yes, Amy Mackin was out for the championship, which was a huge loss to them. Kerry got to the league final, but for Galway in particular, reaching the All-Ireland final and got relegated for Division 1 in the same season. Cork got relegated for Division 1 and reached the semi-final as well as that. Leitrim, obviously the intermediate level, or Division 4 team in the intermediate championship final as well. So has there been many shocks of this championship, do you think? Look at the league form, Michelle, looking into that, especially with Galway reaching out of the final.
I think, look, if you're analysing anything, I suppose even at the start of the year before the league took place, would you have predicted this final pairing? Probably not. Very unlikely, actually. You might have tipped Kerry based on the fact that they've appeared in the last 2 All-Irelands, but some were even saying maybe their chance was gone with those 2 All-Irelands as well. But I suppose what it teaches us all, as on this side of the fence now, is the league is its own competition, and once that's done, we really do need to park it. And sometimes maybe we overanalyze, and we even though we have to go in form, we have to base our predictions and our thoughts on players and performances and teams on what we've seen. But it just shows how much of a really totally different animal and competition it is come championship. Kerry management laid out their stall at the very beginning of the league. They said straight away, and it's a brave thing to say at the start of the year, is that they were focusing later on the year, and they were, I suppose, thinking back to the fact that they'd appeared in the last 2 All-Irelands, wouldn't have been necessarily entirely happy with how they performed in those All-Irelands, even though they were flying up until that point, but weren't able to capitalise in the games, weren't able to finish strong in those games, and we're petering out of the games, we're continuing on. So they made a very bold statement through both of their managers at the start of the year that their focus was later in the championship. And while many of us would maybe question they didn't have the same polish and finesse throughout the year, as we can see, they ground out the results at the important times. And by the time it came around to Munster Championship, they were on fire, and they've been building since. And it hasn't been the same kind of polishness, as I said, that we had last year, but it's been effective. What they're doing is effective. They have a plan. They've impact from the bench. They're finishing games strong, and I think that's the change they've made. So for them, I think it's hard to look at their form and say they were absolutely going to be an All-Ireland final. Galway have just shown that does the league really mean that much? In the semi-finals, there we had the 2 winners of the Division 1, the 2 competitors in Division 1 final in one semi-final, and you had the 2 who were relegated out of Division 1 in the other semi-final. So, I mean, people were wondering what's happening to Cork and Galway being relegated out of Division 1. I mean, that wasn't obviously a question in their own camp. They were looking forward. They got to an All-Ireland semi-final. Cork were probably building really at the right time in Munster and All-Ireland Championship, but they didn't have enough for Galway. Galway fully deserved their semi-final win over Cork. And you know what? They're the team who have beat Dublin and Cork. So out of the 3 last All-Ireland winners, they've beaten 2 of them in their last 2 games. I mean, that's no mean feat either. So look, they'll be buoyed by that and full of confidence going into the final as well. Kerry obviously had the experience of the last 2 finals to go on. So it's hard to put too much emphasis on to look at putting too much emphasis on the league when you see who we have in the All-Ireland final now and how they've, I suppose, played in the last few games.
Exactly. So, and speaking of the senior final, that's the first game will go to Kerry against Galway on 4:15 on TG4 live from Croke Park as well. So, should be a very good game indeed. Kerry chasing their first All-Ireland since 1993. Galway for their first All-Ireland since 2004 and only their second in history. So, as you said, Michelle, there at the start of the show, it is a novel pairing, and it's great to see these 2 sides in the final. And to be honest, was it a shock in the quarterfinal, first of all, that Galway beat Dublin? Was that kind of the game where the championship was just thrown wide open after that?
I think you're right. I think, watching Dublin all year, you felt that they were going very well. You felt that they were building nicely. You felt that they were, I suppose, back a strong force, having won the All-Ireland last year and even playing maybe a little bit better at times this year. And I think I doubt many people gave Galway a chance going into that game. And look, it wasn't a game that Dublin will be incredibly proud of with regards to performances, regards to misses, regards to simple mistakes. But that's when you have to capitalise, and that's when you have to take the chances when it's there. And Galway did that, and that's, I suppose, the praise they deserve for that. Especially, I suppose, even when it was going to extra time, you were wondering, can they still hold on and maintain this momentum? Because the experience of Dublin, they always have that threat. They were obviously hampered, Dublin, by the fact that they had to use a lot of their bench starting out in that game because of players that weren't available to them. But you know what? Galway saw that through, and you could feel the momentum and energy even through the television as you were watching that game. And that definitely threw things up in the air for ladies football, I think, and people watching in general. And it made, like Meath did a few years ago, it made other teams believe as well, and it gave a confidence that, on any given day, anything can happen. You have the right mindset, you have the right attitude, you have the great application. And I suppose, it was an impact from the bench. Aoife O'Rourke with a crucial goal in extra time. And I think that's really the key thing, like not just having those 15, having that bench, making it have an impact. And what belief can do, it really is. And that has thrown, I suppose, the cat among the pigeons in the championship, and they've been able to follow that on with a victory over Cork. I think, people might have been predicting, as we said, that Kerry might be visible in an All-Ireland final this year. Galway, maybe not so much, but they definitely showed that they merit it based on the last 2 performances.
Absolutely so. And looking at Kerry, first of all, in their journey to the final and their scores. Looking back to the Munster Championship, they beat Tipperary by 2 goals and 14 points to 5 points, beat Cork on the second day of 114 to 110, beat Waterford by 1-8 to 1-7, then beat Cork in the Munster final by 2 goals and 15 points to 13 points. In the All-Ireland series, they drew against Donegal 9 points to 1-6, beat Waterford 4-13 to 9 points, then beat Meath in the All-Ireland quarterfinals 16 points to 8, and then beat Armagh 1-8 to 7 points in the semi-final. But in that game, they only scored 1 point in the second half, and that was through a Daniel O'Leary free. So maybe a cause for concern for the Kerry management moving into this game. They've averaged a score of 113 per game and conceded an average of 9 points. Look at their scores, and in the past few seasons, it has been Louise Hurtigs has been the top goal scorer for Kerry in this championship season. But Daniel O'Leary's definitely taken up the mantle in this championship with 1 goal and 30 points. You have Louise there with 2 goals and 17 points as well. Emma Deneen with 4 goals and 5 points. Niamh Carberty with 11. Niamh Ní Cruthóir there with 1-6. Hannah O'Donoghue with 2-3. Siofra O'Shea up there with 1-4 as well. So looking at Kerry's past few games, it's probably been epitomised in the journey to the final there, that their defence has been very, very good. They concede very little goals. Kaylee Cronin, for example, in the semi-final, I recorded she turned over the ball 3 or 4 times in that second half alone against Armagh. But then up top against Armagh, they only scored 1 point in the whole second half, none from play. So has that been a story of Kerry's season? Their attack has kind of failed to flourish at times, but then their defence has been solid.
Yeah, and I think that feeds into what I was saying about they don't seem, I suppose, as as polished and they don't seem as on fire at times this campaign. It's more about grinding. It's more about making sure a lot of the gaps are filled in the backs, as you mentioned. It is a positive that it's not, that there is quite a spread of scorers. I mean, that is a positive. Is a positive for him that Daniel O'Leary was really stepping up there, especially in the Munster campaign for Kerry. And the last day they had a spread of scorers through Danielle, Louise, Niamh Carmody, Shifra as well. But it definitely would be a concern that you're only scoring a point in a semi-final in the second half, without a shadow of a doubt. You could say that they had enough done because they had a period of I think it was 1-4 without response just before half-time, where a lot of work was done. But they're going to need more than that. And in the last two All-Ireland finals, I suppose the upfront wasn't as clicking as well as it had been in previous games. Whereas now you're going into it and you're hoping that it hasn't been, we'll say, incredibly on fire in the sense that they're not finding it easy to get scores maybe as they would have last year, but they're working incredibly hard. Kaylee Cronin, as you mentioned, absolutely stand out. Aoife Delan has been stand out for me as well. And then you've caught Eilish Lynch in the back as well, who is going to be a man marker. And the matchups and the work rate out around that middle. Anna Galvin, I think, got player of the match as well against Meath. Their middle section of the field is very, very, very important, and the work rate that's shown out there. And they're actually upping another level to that. The supply going in at times, especially at the start of the game in Armagh, wasn't necessarily as good as possible. They were a little bit under pressure at the sideline as well, not happy with some of the decisions being made, but something clicked at some stage there against Armagh. Armagh were very, very wasteful at times, and the work rate upped, the supply upped, long balls went into the forwards. I think Niamh Cahoore's goal in that game came from a long ball that was delivered in. She was involved in the movement herself, followed up the pass, and that's what they're good at. That they're good at looking up and supplying very, very quickly and following on. And they have threats. They have threats all over with Emma Deneen as well, Niamh Carmody, as I mentioned. And their bench has been very good. Hannah O'Donoghue didn't start the last day. I mean, so the question is with Kerry is they have options up there. Who is going to be the most effective group to start? But also there's going to be people coming in. And, as long as they take their chances and as long as they're clinical up front, which they have the potential to be, it'll be an improvement, I think, on maybe the last two finals. And that's what they've been aiming for finishing well, finishing strong.
Yeah, exactly. So, but even look at the semi-final against Armagh, I've seen stats there. They had 40% shooting accuracy in that semi-final. Even against Dublin last year, up until maybe the last 10 minutes, the last 5 minutes, that's when Kerry really cranked into gear. Yes, Dublin were probably the better team on the day, but Kerry, in many people's eyes, in many ways, didn't perform to their utmost ability in last year's final. Against Meath, they didn't the first half, to be fair, in 22, but fell away in the second half. Is that kind of a concern for Kerry, moving into the last nitty-gritty stages of big games, that they can't finish those teams off? Like 40% shooting accuracy certainly won't be good enough on Sunday if they are to aim to win on Sunday.
No, and like I said, I think that's been their focus maybe all year in regards to motoring very well in the championship, and then the finals, as you said, I think it was a 9-point defeat to Meath and a 5-point defeat to Dublin in the All-Ireland final, and didn't play for the full 60 minutes. You're absolutely right. This year they've been grinding out some of their finishes have been very strong. Now I know we only said they only got a point against Armagh in the semi-final, but it did feel like they were quite dominant in that game, to be fair. Armagh, as I said, mentioned already, were quite wasteful, and it felt like Kerry would do whatever needed to be done to stay ahead. I think Lorraine Scanlon came in the last 10 minutes, and I think she got 7 or 8 in crucial possessions, and there is an energy about them in those latter stages of the game, and I think they've just eyed that up, that they have to play for the 60 minutes. The effect of people coming in and out of the team shouldn't make it any change to the momentum that they're going. Their game plan shouldn't change. I think they're really trying, with Darragh Long and Declan Quinn, they've really tried to implement that. They've learned lessons from their last two campaigns. And at the end of the day, look, you're in an All-Ireland final to win it, no matter what way you win it. It might not sometimes be pretty to watch all the time. It might not be as effective as it was last year getting to those All-Ireland finals. It might not be as, I suppose, ferocious in attack as maybe other years, but it's about doing what's needed to get over that line. And they seem to have settled in as the year has progressed into a system and into a way of thinking, into a work rate as well, that is suiting them. And it's, I suppose, it's within their power now as to whether they can implement that on the big day, third time lucky.
look at Galway's journey to the final and their scores now, and they started off in the Connacht final, obviously against Mayo, beating them by 1 goal and 11 points to 9 points. Lost to Cork in the first game of the All Ireland group stage down in Bishopstown by 112 to 110. Beat Laois then by 7 goals and 22 points to 1-5. Then that game against Dublin in the quarterfinal, which we were mentioning earlier, beat them after extra time, 3 goals and 7 points to 112, and then beat Cork in the All Ireland semi-final by 2 goals and 7 points to 10 points. They've averaged a score of 311 per game and conceded an average of 1-8. Look at their scores here, and it's dominated really by two players in particular. Olivia Divley with 3 goals and 19 points. Roisin Leonard up there with 4 goals and 16 points as well. Alva Davern has 3 goals and 2 points, including a crucial goal in the semi-final against Cork. Aoife O'Rourke with 2 goals and 1 point, as you mentioned before, Michelle, that crucial goal against Dublin in the quarter-final after extra time. Ailish Morrissey up there with 6 points as well. Luyan Cohen with 5 points. Emma Reaney up there as well. So, like, there's a few things to pick from a Galway point of view. Like, firstly, their defence has been absolutely outstanding. They've conceded an average of 1-8 per game, as I mentioned there. And even against Cork, they conceded only 12 or 13 shots in that semi-final, which is absolutely remarkable. I know Cork had a very good shooting accuracy themselves, but Galway conceded very, very few shots that day. And that goes down to the work of Nicola Ward, Louise Ward, Sarah Ní Lynchig in the full back role as well. The Galway defence has been really strong this campaign, hasn't it?
It really has. And I think Galway, in contrast to Kerry, where Kerry, I think, will try and just settle quietly into the game and withstand what's thrown at them for a while and then kind of come at it. I think Galway, and they've shown this in other games, are going to go at teams, and they can go at teams. And that comes right from the backs. And look, they have been very effective as defenders, but also as attacking defenders, especially the likes of Nicola Ward. We're used to seeing her powering up the pitch. But I mean, Sarah Ní Lynchig did a very good job on Katie Quirke the last day. Without Katie Quirke the last day, Cork wouldn't have been in that semi-final, let's be honest, because most of the scores were coming through her. But there was a fine battle going on between the two of them inside there. And Aoife Ní I think, really stood up in the Dublin game specifically. I know she got a yellow card during that game, but there was a ferocity to what she was doing, an intensity to what she was doing that kind of rippled throughout the Galway team. And when that ferocity is there throughout the team, they are very dangerous, because not only are they able to, I suppose, put in good tackles and bring that good level of physicality to the game, they're very dangerous going forward, and they move forward as a unit, and they really do rely on penetrating runs, and those penetrating runs come from the backs. They come from around midfield area and the half forward line, and they've been very effective at that. Alva Davern got her goal because she powered up through the middle while the ball was out in the wing, crossed over to her in space, and that's what happens. Nicola Ward has got many a score. And there's very rarely a game where Nicola Ward doesn't come up and pop up for a point. Her sister Louise was very effective against Dublin as well. So I think they're going to bring a level of ferocity, not only to their defence, but to their attack. And I hope they do, because that's what will really make a game out of this. I hope nobody really tries to sit back too much. I would love to see these two teams just go for it against each other. And the real positive and the real bonus for Galway is that they can put teams on the back foot when they play like that, when they play with speed, when they play with those runs. And, while the Kerry backs are very, very good and, are very steady most of the time, if you can move that ball in fast before they get set up, because they do work themselves back pretty lively, if you can get that ball in there quickly and make those runs and break through it, even if you're not getting through, at least you might be enticing fouls and you're getting frees. And Roisin Leonard has been absolutely on fire for Galway when it comes to place balls and it comes to scores. Really, really effective this year. So I hope Galway bring that level of intensity both in their defence and their attack to make a great game out of this on Sunday.
You mentioned Roisin Leonard there, and along with Olivia Divley, they've been really, really good for Galway up front. Roisin Leonard herself has scored 4 goals in her last 3 games, which is absolutely a ridiculous record. I think she won a Player of the Month award recently as well, and definitely deserved as well. But is it a concern for Galway, in your opinion? Look at the semi-final, at all their shots. All but 2 of their shots were by Olivia Divley or Roisin Leonard. Is that a concern for Galway? Like, if Kerry do quieten them 2 down, then it's up to the other players to step up around them. So is that a concern for you for Galway moving into Sunday?
That is my main concern, and we spoke about the amount of scorers that are available on the Kerry team to step up, and I'm just wondering whether that is there on the Galway team. And absolutely, 2 main players have been getting a lot of the scores. for Galway over the last few games, and no doubt Kerry management see that, they'll be looking to nullify that. And when Kerry have defenders like I mentioned already, Eilish Lynch, Aisling O'Connell, Aoife Delan, Kaylee Cronin, there's no doubt they will be picking up specific players there, and if any of those players get on the ball, that they'll be trying to shut them down very early. So how will Galway cope with that? That is the question, and where the rest of the further score is going to come from if those options are shut down. So look, it'll have to be, and I think if it settles into quite a slow game over and back, kind of lateral game where they're facing into a mass defence against Kerry, where they're not able to get off those shots, I would fear for them. And I know Eilish Maher, she came in and started the last day, and she's back from injury this year. She generally is an effective scorer. She has got a good few scores as well. So they will be looking for the likes of more of their players to step up in that sense and share that responsibility around, because I think that Kerry are really going to go at that and really going to target those players, because they will feel, as if you look at the stats yourself, that if you can shut those players down, then where are most of the rest of the scores going to come from a Galway perspective.
And did look at the Galway backline versus the Kerry forward line, and we talked about matchups earlier. From a Galway point of view, like Louise Ní Bhurthairtigh hasn't performed to her utmost ability this season. It's probably with Daniel O'Leary, Siofra O'Shea, who've been the standouts for Kerry, potentially Hannah O'Donoghue, who she does start as well. From a Galway point of view, do you think it'd be best to put the best man marker that Galway have on a Daniel O'Leary or Siofra O'Shea, or do you put your best man marker on Louise Ní Bhurthairtigh, regardless of the season she's having at the moment?
Look, I think, from a Kerry perspective, Louise Ní Bhurthairtigh, I suppose, hasn't been a standout. Absolutely, she will always pose a threat, but she's still being effective for them. And I think the matchups are going to be interesting. I think probably I would see maybe Sarah Lynch possibly taking up Louise Ní Bhurthairtigh, and then after that, Daniel O'Leary, Emma Dineen. I mean, I don't see Nicola Ward is not going to move out of the centre back position, because the good thing about Nicola Ward is, while she's a defender, she's going to take up a key player, maybe in the likes of Niamh Carmody or Niamh Cahur, but that means that they have to watch her as well in attack. So she's going to definitely be flying forward. Aoife Callig is somebody that maybe you could put on the likes of Emma Dineen, because Emma Dineen brings a good bit of physicality when she wins the ball, and she turns very effectively, and you're going to need somebody who can really stick with her and really match that physicality. So that might be an option for them. So look, I think as a unit, Galway need to make sure that they're set up well, that they have the bodies back there. And I think that's the key thing, because as a unit, Kerry have more options to lay it off and follow up on a pass. Niamh Carmody was able to pop over long range scores as well the last day. So I'm not sure it's a case of they're going to have key players for each of the Kerry forwards. I think maybe one or two. As I said, I think Louise Ní Bhurthairtigh is very good in primary possession. Emma Dineen is excellent at getting primary possession as well. But I think just as a unit, they're going to have to work very hard filtering back to shut off the options for Kerry. Now, as I said, they have the possibility of doing that, absolutely. And we know Olivia Divley spends most of her time out around the middle third of the field as well. And Leanne Cohen, actually, the last day spent most of her time out around the middle of the field as well, supplying that ball in. So I think midfield is actually really important. It's not something we've even mentioned as well, but out there, I mean, Mary O'Connell had a fine game against Armagh the last day for Kerry. And Alva Davern on the other end had a fine game against Armagh. And there's a lot of work being done out there, and it's there that the ball is supplied in. And while Kerry look up in the middle third of the field to try and supply that ball into the full forward line, that's where Galway need to try and shut that down. Galway, not so much. Galway try and maybe run the lines a little bit more. So look, I think defensively, Galway have been quite effective. I'm not sure if they've had a great test in the semi-final. Well, they had a fine test in the quarter-final. I think you're now coming up against another seasoned team with really good movement in forwards, and as a unit, they need to make sure that they're covering all options, covering all spaces.
And even looking at the Galway team the last day against Cork, I counted 5 of the 15 were Kilcurran Clonbyrne players. Obviously, that's a third of the team, obviously, and they are all Ireland champions for a long time now, obviously beating your own club, Ballymacarbery, earlier on this year, or the end of last year, the club championship. So will a winning mentality like that prove vital this Sunday, do you think? Because none of the Kerry players have experience of winning All-Ireland titles at senior level with club or inter-county, whereas 5 of the Galway players in the starting 15, including the likes of Olivia Zivoli and Nicola Ward and Louise Ward, do for their club. So do you think that will prove decisive come Sunday?
I think it'll be a big help, absolutely. It was only last year, that they were in Croke Park playing with their club. And look, I've had the privilege of playing against them twice in the last few years, and I think as a club, they're an incredible outfit. And I remember saying the first time we played them that it actually felt like we were playing against a county team. They were that effective, and they were that they worked that well, and they were that fit, and they were just all the things that you need, to finish out high intense games and good competitive games that they had them. And they were comprehensive winners in the All-Ireland final last year as well. So they have that experience. They can draw on that, absolutely, going on and share that with the rest of their teammates. Although, it was only 2019 the last time that they were in a final as well. So there are still a few players from that era there as well. So look, I think it will help them, absolutely. I do think, but I think the thing about Galway maybe in previous years is they need the whole team to step up as one and not just be, Olivia Zivoli or not just be Nicola Ward. They do need the whole team to step up as a unit, and that happened against Dublin. It has to be said. Like Kerry, you could say have 2 All-Ireland finals under the belt, incredible experience in Croke Park, even with regards to league finals and All-Ireland semis and finals over the last 2 years. So Croke Park is an All-Ireland final day isn't going to be something that's new to Kerry players either. And any good team, the cliche, it takes you to lose one to win one. Now Kerry have lost 2. So there's no doubt that they've learned an awful lot. Even if it comes to just how to prepare for this week going into it, the morning of the match, things that they're not going to do that maybe they did the last time. And then it comes to the application on the pitch and what they're going, the visualization. There is very, very recent visualization opportunities for Kerry in All-Ireland final, to be able to easily call upon. Galway will, I suppose, like you said, the Kilkerran and Clonberne Birds will be able to share experiences with the players around them. But you know what? Sometimes youth on your side as well, in a Galway perspective, you don't have any fear as well. So that can maybe play a part. But I do think the 2 last All-Ireland appearances by Kerry probably would propel them more so than the club experience of Kilkerran and Clonberne.
That was the next question I was going to ask you, actually, about Kerry being the last 2 All-Ireland finals. Obviously, we've seen from the football on the men's side last week, we were saying, like, in predictions, saying that Galway will beat Armagh because of past experiences, to lose one, to win one. They ended up losing to Armagh and ended up performing worse than their previous All-Ireland final appearance against Kerry in 2022, funnily enough. So, like, Louise Dever-Hurtig, there's the thing around her not getting an All-Ireland medal, which a lot of people may argue Louise is the best ever player in LGFA history, never to win an All-Ireland medal as of now. And you had the situation with the hurling a few weeks ago. Patrick Harkin didn't win an All-Ireland medal, maybe tried too hard in the game between Cork and Clare in the hurling final. Shane Walsh the same last week against Armagh. So is that kind of elements hanging over Kerry a small bit? Until they win one, the pressure will be always over them for punters and media to just get them over the line in many ways, because you see with teams down through the years, they've been favourites going into a final and then they just don't perform on the day. So do you think that could be the case with Kerry?
Do you know what? I think what that all goes to show, and it's, as I said, started the show here, like, it's been great from a neutral and elite football perspective, but even from a GA perspective, I mean, the finals that we've been dealt up with this year. But I think what it also goes to show is there's very little room for sentiment in sport, and results aren't going to go your way just because somebody hasn't won one in a long time or ever won one, and it really just cements that you have to work and things have to go right and performances have to be spot on to get that over that line and get that All-Ireland medal. And on the day, and as much as a cliche as that is, on any given day anyone can do anything. But it's on the day, it really is, whether that performance is meriting you crossing over the line, walking up those steps to collect that cup. And I think Kerry will, they can't not acknowledge that they will probably have the favourites tag. As to whether they'll focus on it? I doubt it very much. I think there's going to be a lot, and I expect there to be a lot of maturity in the Kerry panel with regards to dealing with this after the last 2 years. And I expect that, like, the leaders in the likes of Louise Hurtig, Lorraine Scanlon, Anna Galvin, Kaylee Cronin, like, I expect all of those, all the hullabaloo that goes around being an All-Ireland final day is not going to be of that much importance. At the end of the day, I think that's what they're going to be zoning in on. Do I think there's pressure on them? I think, as a player, you just really want to win it, and you're winning it you want to win it for yourself, for your family, for your club, for your teammates around you, for all the effort that you've put in. Do I think that you focus hugely on what other people are saying in regards to, God, they should win this, and God's, they haven't maybe been as good in the last 2 finals as they would have liked to? I doubt it very much. I think it's just a massive motivator and drive within themselves that really wants to see this over the line, because it's a long time to try and keep doing this, coming back after so many losses, and that is very, very hard mentally, and it's very hard even emotionally as well, because you're putting a lot on the line, and it's the hope that kills you a lot of the time, and it's a dream that you have. So I think it's not so much that they'll be hampered by pressure. I think it's just that they will want this so much, but I think they'll be, as I said, a bit more mature in dealing with that in a practical sense this year round. Now, from a Galway perspective as well, look, they have players with experience there as well, and I'm absolutely not writing that off at all. They have been in recent All-Ireland finals as well in the last 5 years. As you said, they've great leaders with regards to the club scene as well. And I think the belief they have going into this is going to be massive. I really do. I think that they will be buoyed by the fact that they've beaten Dublin, they have beaten Cork. They don't see. I don't believe that they're going to see Kerry as any different to the likes of Dublin and Cork, that they can on their given day beat them as well. So, look, it's hard to call. It's hard to predict as to who has the right mentality going in there. Only those two camps will know themselves. But I just hope they bring their strengths, and I hope they bring the performances that both are capable of, to, I suppose, for us selfishly as spectators, to really enjoy a really humdinger of an All-Ireland final.
It is obviously going to be a novel winner. Galway, if they win it for the first time in 20 years, Kerry for the first time in 31 years. Who's going to do it, Michelle? Will it be Kerry or will it be Galway?
Look, I think I said it a little bit earlier. I'm expecting a game where I'm hoping for a game where Galway really go at it from the start. I think that Kerry, maybe like they might have done against Armagh, a little bit, expected a little bit of an onslaught, steady themselves against it, and then maybe came good. And I think that probably is how I see this going. I think the impact from benches is going to be very important. And looking at benches, I think Kerry have a stronger hand there as well. So I'm expecting a very tight game. But I think in the second half, I'm thinking Kerry probably will power on that little bit ahead of Galway and see it out to the end this time.
You'll probably go for Kerry to win this game as well. Before we get down to the intermediate, are you expecting a good game of football in this game? Because like in the last weekend, obviously the men's football, Armagh and Galway was always hyped up, and then they were nervous basically to give the ball away. They didn't want to make any mistakes. Do you think the LGFA final this Sunday will be about the same as last Sunday? Will it be a bit cagey in the first few minutes until maybe it bursts in the last few minutes? Or what do you think? How do you think? Will it be an exciting game, do you think?
I hope so. I hope so. I think all of us as spectators hope that it will be. I suppose you just wonder, is there going to be any nervousness on either side, and nobody wanted to go, make a mistake, the costly mistake too early in a game. But look, I think, as I said, the styles that both play are quite different from each other. I expect Kerry to sit back a little bit and just kind of withstand and kind of break down a bit more slowly, and then pick off the scores if they're available to them. But it's important that they do that take their scoring opportunities. I hope it isn't a slow start. I hope it isn't kind of this very defensive lateral kind of play, almost a chess game. I mean, the last All-Ireland final Galway played in was against Dublin. I'll never forget actually working on it, and it was finished final score of 2-3 to 4 points. We have very little to talk about at half time now, I'll tell you that. But I just hope it is an open, free-flowing game of football. Now, a lot of the the last few games in the championship have been. But you're right. Look, as to it depends on, I suppose, the tactics that management have as to whether, it is about withstanding and maybe breaking then later on in the game. But look, fingers crossed, both teams have the potential to really go at each other and bring excitement. And you know what? I know with that come mistakes, and that happens. But I suppose some of the best games we've seen in maybe the hurling, men's football, Camogie ladies football championship this year have been teams going at each other. Mistakes are made in those games as well, but maybe there's one or two controversial decisions. But at the end of the day, it becomes a battle. It becomes an exciting battle, and whoever wins it really deserves it because of the toughness that existed out there. So look, here's hoping that it's going to be one of those kind of games.
Hopefully so. We're hoping for an exciting game as spectators, as you mentioned before, and hopefully it will be a good senior final. Before that, there's the intermediate final. That's the second game of the day, and that is Tyrone against Leitrim at 1:45 on TG4 in Croke Park as well. I think it's fair to say, look at the league in particular for both of these sides. Tyrone went up from Division 2 to Division 1, losing that league final to Kildare and Croke Park, which, to be fair, Tyrone had a very good league campaign, had a very good championship, and you would probably expect Tyrone to be in this situation. Leitrim, on the other hand, our Division 4 team, lost the semi-final in the league. In that league campaign, I think it was the Carlow at that time. They have some brilliant scores, there's no doubt about it. But when you look at the league ranking, Leitrim, out of the intermediate teams, are the second lowest ranked team, only Wicklow behind them in the intermediate championship. So it's such a surprise that Leitrim are here. But Tyrone, it's kind of expected that they're here. But at the same time, Leitrim did beat Tyrone earlier on in the championship. So to be honest, this is actually tends to be a very good game.
It is, and I think you're right. I'm not sure many, but if you've been following them, I suppose, throughout the championship, they have actually been unbeaten in the championship this year. Tyrone have lost twice, once in their group game to Leitrim itself, and in the Ulster Championship against Monaghan. And like I remember when I was playing myself, we often had really tough battles against Leitrim in the intermediate championship. But like if you're looking, it's like anything. If you're looking at the history books, I think Leitrim have only ever contested 3 All-Ireland finals, 2 junior, 1 intermediate, and their last one was in 2007 in the intermediate when they won against Wexford. On the contrast of that, then you have Tyrone, who have contested 6 All-Ireland finals, 3 junior, 2 intermediate, and 1 senior. Senior, they actually lost to Dublin in 2010, but they were recently in the 2018 intermediate All-Ireland, which they won over Meath. And you see the trajectory Meath have taken since then. So look, they're, I suppose, maybe an unlikely pairing, but going on the form of the championship, Leitrim fully merit being there as well. They bet Wexford in the semi-final, bet Roscommon in the quarterfinal. Wexford had been in 2 of the last 3 intermediate All-Ireland finals, so that was a feat in itself. And I suppose Wexford were a bit below par in their semi-final, but Leitrim were really capitalised on key periods of the game, especially I suppose when Wexford went down to 14 players, got 2 goals during that period of time, and have been racking up the scoring. And you know what? It's a number of players who have been showing for them. It's not just relying on 1 or 2 players. Captain Michelle Guckian is very crucial to everything they do with regards to scores or frees as well. Maureen Devaney, Elva Clancy, and Laura O'Dowd. If you look through their scores, I mean, they really are coming from a variety of places, and they have a lot of experience in the team as well, from the likes of cornerback Claire Owens, who's playing with Leitrim for a very, very long time. So look, I think based on, I suppose, performances in the championship to date, they really do merit being there. And Tyrone, and interesting enough, both teams came from the same group in the championship, in group 4. So they have experience playing against each other earlier on in this championship. And look, Tyrone have always been very strong in intermediate. Haven't featured in the last number of All-Ireland finals. As I said, it was 2018 the last time they were there, but they bet down in their semi-final. Clare in their quarter-final. Clare were in the All-Ireland final last year. So look, both have come through, I suppose, serious opposition in the intermediate ranks to get to where they are. Maria Canavan is obviously a key player for Tyrone, has gotten a huge amount of their scoring herself, and Chloe McCaffrey in the last 2 games in particular. So look, it's as you said, and it's like we said in the first game, you know, championship can obviously bring about different mentality with players, a different peak of performance for players, and And it seems to be the case, especially in regards to Leitrim this year.
Definitely so. Look at the journeys and scores for the final for both sides. Michelle delved into it a small bit there, but we'll have a look at it on the screen here. So in the Ulster Championship, as Michelle mentioned earlier, Tyrone lost to Monaghan by 12 points to 210. They did lost to Leitrim in the All-Ireland Championship, 5 goals and 8 points to 412. So that was an exciting game. Hopefully we'll get the same amount of goals in this final, if not more, on Sunday. The Wicklow game, obviously, they beat them 3-11 to 5 points, beat Clare 2-8 to 2-7, and then beat Down 2-11 to 111. They've scored an average score of 211 per game and conceded an average of 28 per game. Look at their scores, as Michelle mentioned earlier as well. Maria Canavan is on fire in this championship with 2 goals and 22 points. Chloe McCaffrey with 2 goals and 11. Sorka Gormley with 3 goals and 4 points. Aoife Horace there with 3 goals and 3 points. You have Zoe Loughran with 2 goals and 1 as well in the Tyrone journey, the scores for their journey to the final. Look at Leitrim. They hammered Sligo in the first day out. Connacht 7 goals and 20 points to 7 points. Beat Roscommon in the Connacht final 3-12 to 19 points. Beat Tyrone in that first game in the All-Ireland, obviously. Beat Wicklow 17 points to 10. Beat Roscommon in the All-Ireland quarterfinals. So they beat Roscommon twice this year. Roscommon were Division 3 finalists, so that's a fair achievement, to be fair. 3 goals and 13 points to 3 goals and 11 points, and then beat Wexford in the semi-final, 3 goals and 8 points to 210. They've averaged a score 315 per game and conceded an average of 210. And look at their scores there again, as Michelle mentioned, Michelle Gokian with 4 goals and 26 points, or 28 points rather, in this championship, which is absolutely incredible. Elva Clancy there with 5 goals and 19 points. Mur Devani 6 goals in this championship, which is absolutely incredible. 11 points there to boot as well. Laura O'Dowd up there with 2 goals and 13 points as well. So yeah, there's a lot of scores between the two sides. As I mentioned, the journey to the final there, 9 goals shared between the two sides at the group stage. If we are to get the same level of game on Sunday, we're in for some treat.
Absolutely, and that's generally a feature of the Intermediate Championship and the Intermediate Finals, to be fair. And I think I think it's from playing in the Intermediate Championship. I think it's down to the fact that there is a lot of pace. There can be a lot of pace to the games. They generally do be a little bit more open, and I probably not as physical and as close a physical battle as it would be when it comes to senior. So there is a little bit more space there to be gotten. There is a little bit more freedom there to get those scores and take those scores, and they generally are very good quality, entertaining games, and that's why you have such high scoring finishes, to be fair. And so look, I to be honest, I think the intermediate finals of the last few years have been quite good in regards to the standard of football, especially in the last 2 years, I think, as well. But yeah, I think both teams will be very confident going into this. As you said, both have been very free scoring. Leitrim have scored quite a considerable bit more than Tyrone going into this game overall. And as I mentioned already, because I think their share of their scores, there could be a slight edge there for them, even though Tyrone are the ones you would think with the most maybe recent experience with regards to All Irelands and regards to, I suppose, even, coming from being a senior team originally back in the day as well. So, but I really think Leitrim are showing themselves very well, and if they can maintain that scoring record, I think that they'd be very hard to stop on Sunday.
If Leitrim were to win this final, do you think across all 4 senior codes, would this be the story of the year, in your opinion? Because this is absolutely incredible. 28 ranked team across the whole little National League in the intermediate final. If they were to go up to senior, it'd be remarkable for the county, not just the team itself, but the county, because Leitrim is obviously steeped in history with Gaelic football in men and women's sports.
I think it would be a big story. I really do. I think it would be a huge achievement. It is not somebody, I suppose, look, I've been working on games with the last 5 years. Leitrim haven't been a team that I've even really been able to work on regards to, the latter stages of the championship, because they just haven't been featuring then. But they really have burst onto the scene this year. Like you said, I don't know who would have been predicting that they would have been featuring a lot of the final. I was watching some of the media interviews that were done in Croke Park during Captain's Day during the week as well. And, you can see that they're absolutely thrilled to be there and really reveling in the occasion of it as well. But if they manage to overcome Tyrone on Sunday, it will be a massive achievement and a massive boost as well for football in Leitrim and in the province as well, because we need a little bit more competition in the provinces, in most of the provinces, to be honest, as well. So I think it could be, but now Tyrone will have something to say about that as well on the day on Sunday. So, look, with regards to Leitrim, we've talked about, I suppose, they're scoring very good as well, and they'll have to take a few lessons as well, though, from looking at, I suppose, the semi-final and quarter-final. And in their semi-final, they were 7 points up, I think, with 10 or 12 minutes to go, and ended up only winning the game by a point. So, they'll have to work on things like that to make sure that they finish out these games well, because, Tyrone will be looking for every opportunity, and they have the scorers up front in the leadership inside the likes of Maria Canavan, as we said, and Chloe McCaffrey, and Sorcha Gormley as well up there. They will, the space will be there in intermediate games, and it's about capitalizing on that space. So Leitrim, though, I suppose the one warning I would say is that when you can be delighted to be in an Ireland final, absolutely, but I suppose it doesn't guarantee you winning anything, and it's just about you have to get through that 60 minutes as well. And Tyrone, I think, will know that a little bit more than Leitrim, but hopefully Leitrim will be prepared for that as well.
You mentioned you need more competition in the provinces, and in the province of Ulster at the moment, in senior level, there's only 2 teams at the moment, Donegal and Armagh, and coincidentally, actually, whatever the results will happen, either Connacht or Ulster will be bumped up to 3 teams in senior next season. Do you think it's important for Ulster ladies football that Tyrone go up? Because you probably need more Ulster teams in there, like Cavan have gone down to intermediate, Monaghan have gone down there as well. I know Down are on the rise at the moment, Fermanagh, the junior final, as we'll mention later on. But do you think it's important for the whole province of Ulster that Tyrone win this game on Sunday, just to get more teams into the senior championship?
I think, look, well, I suppose you could say the same for Connacht and Leitrim as well, because Ulster and Connacht this year they were straight finals with regards to Mayo and Galway, and it's a difficult one. There doesn't seem, I suppose, Munster, we're lucky down in here in Munster in that, it generally does be quite a competitive Munster campaign. You get, by the time you get around to the All-Ireland series, the Munster teams have a good few games under their belts in preparation for that, and they're generally, as I said, competitive games. But as to whether the other provinces have that, I know there's a number of teams this year. There was 4 teams in Leinster, but I suppose it would be felt that Meath and Dublin were featuring very strongly, and not necessarily the same level of competitiveness was there as might have featured in Munster. So I do think, look, whoever comes out of this, it brings another team into the provincial setup. I think that is important. Look, not just for, I suppose, the preparation of the other teams as well. It's just a development in ladies football that, we need to make sure that we have as many teams at the top of our game. And I suppose one of the slightly negative features of the intermediate winners is that, maybe that gap sometimes can be too big, and you sometimes see teams slipping straight back down into intermediate again as, a year or 2 later, and that gap maybe is just that little bit too big. So it is important to make sure that those counties are developing, not just for winning an intermediate All-Ireland, but also for developing into being a senior team and to staying at the table with regard to senior in ladies football.
So who do you think will win this game? Do you think Leitrim will put off the shock and beat Tyrone for the 2nd time this season, or do you think Tyrone will do enough to get over the line and to compound the fact they're Division 1 next season? And if they win this game, they're the senior champion next year. So it'll be a brilliant season if they do go on and win it.
Yeah, it will. It really will. And I suppose the other trend we've seen across the GA codes this year is, it's actually dangerous to have beaten the team earlier on in the year. And sometimes that can be, overturned very easily in a final. Look, I think it'll be, as I said, a very high-scoring game, going by the previous performances of the teams. I have a slight inkling for Leitrim, I have to say, if I'm going by my gut. I have a slight inkling that, that they will be absolutely buoyed by their performances this year. And I'm going to give them a slight head on the Intermediate Ireland this year.
You heard it on this podcast first. Leitrim to win the Intermediate Championship, but you know what? I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go Leitrim as well. I just feel like, you know what? They have the scores. They've beaten Tyrone this year. Michelle Guckins at fire. Ava Clancy is as well. Laura O'Dowd, her sister Ailish O'Dowd, won the All-Ireland with Dublin senior last year. Why not? I think Leitrim will win it. I feel like we're going to go for a shock here, and we're going to go for Leitrim to win the intermediate All Ireland. And yeah, should be a good game in the intermediate this Sunday. And finally, on to the junior game, which is on 11:45 on Sunday morning. It's between Fermanagh against Louth on TGR again in Croke Park. Like Fermanagh were at the top end of Division 4 this year. Louth were mid-table slash the bottom end of Division 3. This is a game where both of these sides are probably at the level playing fields looking at it. Fermanagh probably have well-known players, but Louth as a team are very, very good, and by the results, they look very good in this championship. So should be a good game, should be a good even game, this.
Yeah, I think this will be a very even game, and actually interesting looking back at, I suppose, Louth and Fermanagh over the last number of years. I think bar last year and 2020 and 21, an All-Ireland final has featured either Louth or Fermanagh. But they played each other in 2019. So now Fermanagh have the most recent experience. They've been in 4 or 5 finals in the last 8 years. So that's an incredible achievement. And as we mentioned earlier, they've actually won 2 of those, but it ends up going back down to the junior championship then after that. So look, it's tough. It's very competitive. Carlow and Limerick were beaten in the semi-finals. Louth bet Carlow, Fermanagh bet Limerick. It's both have topped their group as well coming into this. It's a tough one. I know, like, both there's some star players on both sides. And Kate Flood for Louth. You have Emer Smith, Láithín Bogue, as well for Fermanagh, who are absolutely incredible players. And I mean, we talk about the intermediate championship and the game style of games being very open. I expect something quite similar in the junior as well, and that's where you get these players who are able to take really good scores, really do shine on the big day. And I think this is quite a tough one to call, if I'm honest. My gut isn't siding either way just yet. But look, both will be very confident going into this game. And with regards to scores, which I know you're going to talk about in a second, there's not a huge amount between them either.
There's very, very close. It's very, very close between the two sides, to be fair. And I'm going to bring up these now. So Fermanagh's journey to the final, this junior final. So they beat Derry in the Ulster final by 14 to 10 points. That was quite a hammering there. Beat Sligo by 2 goals and 10 points to 3-6. Beat Carlow 116 to 3-4. Beat Derry again. This time 218 to 4-7, and beat London 8 goals and 17 points to 1-3, and then beat Limerick by 2 goals and 12 points to 210. They've averaged a score of 413 per game and conceded an average of 2-7. Look at their scores, and top of the list, Emer Smith, 9 goals and 41 points. That's just incredible scoring. I can't lie about that. Láithín Bogue, 3 goals and 12 points. Lisa Maguire with 3 goals and 7. Aoife McCabe, 3 goals and 5 points. Daniel Maguire there with 10 points as well. Look at Louth's journey to the final as well. They beat Kilkenny in the Leinster Championship, 3 goals and 19 points to 1-3. Beat Carlow in the Leinster final by 2 goals and 10 points to 1-5. And they beat Carlow twice this year in the championship, which is some feat, to be fair to Louth. They beat Kilkenny again in the championship, 5 goals and 9 points to 1-1. Beat Limerick 14 points to 8, and then beat Longford 6-12 to 1-9, and then beat Carlow in the All-Ireland semi-final by 2-11 to 11 points. They've averaged a score 313 per game and conceded an average of 1-5 per game. Their defence has been really, really solid this championship campaign. Kate Flood, as you mentioned before, 6 goals and 22 points. Niamh Rice there with 3 goals and 23 points. Ema Byrne, 4 goals and 5. Mia Duffy there with 2 goals and 2 points. Aoife Halligan up there as well with 6 points, and Anya Breen with 1 goal and 3 points. Look at those stats. Like, both sides score a lot. There's no point denying that. Like, Kate Flood has done brilliant for her. Louth, you have 9 goals and 41 points for Emer Smith. For Fermanagh, Láithín Bogue's performed well. But to be honest, look at those stats. I think the defence is probably the differentiating factor of this. Louth have conceded an average of 1-5 per game, and they've conceded very, very low tallies throughout their games in the championship this year. So could that be a deciding factor on Sunday?
It could be, and as I said, there's very, very little to go on as to how to, I suppose, separate these teams regards to performances. But I think it really could be. Now, they're coming up against a very formidable side in Fermanagh with regards to the I suppose the star power of some of the players when it comes to be able to take scores. But it very well could be that they could be very much, I suppose, inspired and motivated by how their defence has been performing to date. And Fermanagh will have to work hard to make sure that they're able to create those opportunities for their players and take those chances when they get them. So, look, defence, everything starts in defence. We all know that, and those of us who played in the forwards will always have said, we only end up getting scores because of the huge work that's been done back the field in order to get the ball up to us. So Louth will hope to bring that kind of momentum and that strength and that coherence in their defence into the game on Sunday to prevent the likes of Emer Smith, Láithín Bogue, Molly McGloin, all of those from getting on the score sheet too easy. But look, Croke Park is a big open space. It's there is a lot of space to be found out there, and the ball moves very, very quickly as well. And I suppose, the one other feature about the junior game is it's on it very early in the day as well. Players are generally maybe used to playing games around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, maybe evening games and so on. So it does require a difference in preparation, a difference in, I suppose, mentality as well, and those energy levels, making sure. So there's a good few factors to come into play in this that can sometimes have an impact on players, but very hard one to call, to be honest, Matt. I really, really would struggle to pick a team. Maybe if you were to push me, I would say that Fermanagh, lost the final against Antrim in 2022, had been motoring very well in that championship and would have been disappointed with their All-Ireland final performance that day. And I think looking across, I think maybe as regards to team and dangers throughout the team, I think they maybe slightly have the upper hand. But look, I think it's anyone's game for the junior championship on Sunday.
It definitely is. And you mentioned that the ball moves faster in Croke Park. It's a faster pace. And added to that, Louth have averaged average 3 goals per game. Fermanagh have averaged 4 goals per game. Do you think we could be in for a goal fest? We usually are in the junior final, to be fair. So could there be a lot of goals in this one?
I think so. I think the junior and the intermediate have the potential to do that. I remember even in the intermediate final last year, I think there was goals being scored in the closing stages of the game, even, when it was really coming down to the wire at the very end. And I suppose that's the beauty and the excitement of ladies football as well, that, those opportunities do present themselves. The pitch is there's a lot of space to cover out there. You can, if you move the ball quickly, you can travel very, very well. It's hard to cover that amount of ground as well, on an Ireland final day. So I do think we're in for fairly high scoring games in both the junior and intermediate. Just, I suppose, even if you look, as we said already, and we've looked at the scoring histories of the two teams in junior as well, they're going very, very well, and they have people capable of getting high scores. As to whether the pressure on the day is going to affect any of these players, we won't know until Sunday as well. And there are going to be mistakes made as well. But I suppose it's about just keeping your focus and trying to build, and trying to, if you miss one, just keep going and try and get on the next one, and not be under any huge pressure to take any silly shots or pot shots, working your way into that scoring zone and just building nicely. But yeah, I think it is going to be a fairly high scoring affair for both the junior and intermediate, if you ask me.
So are you predicting Fermanagh to win this game, or do you think Louth's defence might be good enough just to hold out their lethal attackers like Láithín Bogue and Emer Smith?
I think I'm going to go with Fermanagh. I think I'm going to go with Fermanagh for the wider spread of players. I think there are maybe potentially more threats to come from Fermanagh to attack Louth than maybe Louth have been experiencing in the championship so far to date. And credit to them, they have had a very, very healthy defence, and they've been performing very well. They're, both teams, as I said, are unbeaten in the championship. So, I just think maybe Fermanagh might have slightly the upper hand in the quality of spread of players that they have, the recent experience that they have as well. And, they would have been very disappointed to lose their semi-final to Limerick last year, having been in the All-Ireland final the previous year. So I think maybe there is a little bit of impetus maybe with Fermanagh to, I suppose, right that from last year.
Yeah, I'd probably go for Fermanagh as well. Like Láithín Bogues and obviously Emer Smith, 9 goals in this championship's absolutely ridiculous for him as well. So I'm going to go for Fermanagh to win this game, but wouldn't go against Louth winning this game either. It should be a very tight game in the junior final and indeed the intermediate and senior finals as well. We're hoping for a very good game, a very good 3 games in the LGFA finals day in Croke Park on Sunday. So that is the preview. Thanks to anybody that watched. Thanks to Capture Athletics for sponsoring the show. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next week's show, we'll see you all then. And thanks to Michelle, obviously, for coming on to the show, and best of luck to her analysing the games on TG Car on Sunday as well. So and thanks to anybody that tuned in for the show as well. And until next week, we'll see you all then, and take care.